Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk a little bit about two different meditation practices that I like to do that are both specifically musically related or involved. As you'll see, the cool thing about these practices is that you don't actually have to be a real musician in order to do them. You may need a little bit of musical ability for the first thing, but not necessarily and definitely not a lot in order to do it properly. Although these things are pretty general and therefore may be of interest to a potentially wider audience, I quickly want to address the viewers who are already interested in my usual jazz guitar specific kind of content. You may already be familiar with my mind, body, spirit kind of an approach that I like to apply to a lot of my practice. Now, while I wouldn't say that the primary reason why I may do these meditation exercises is for the purposes of getting better at playing jazz guitar or just growing as a musician in general, these kinds of habits can certainly still have a positive result on these types of things for sure, especially if you're really consistent with them. Interestingly enough, though, the way that these things would fit into my actual musical practice is pretty unique in that I would say they involve the unification and simultaneous engagement of all three of the components, the mind, body, and spirit, instead of just focusing on them one at a time individually. And this, of course, is what we're really doing in the moment when we may be actually playing music for real. I've been focusing specifically on just the body component on this channel for a while now, but I'm getting ready to wrap that up and I'm going to soon be transitioning on over to the mind component, so I thought this was a good opportunity around this time to talk about this type of thing. Anyway, that's enough of an introduction. I'm going to get into it now, and if you're digging the content, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like and consider subscribing, and hope you enjoy. Alright, so the first thing that I like to do is basically what I would describe as the playing a musical instrument version of transcendental meditation. And the way that I had initially really become interested in this is that I came across a little short video on YouTube from Mike Gordon, the bass player from Phish, who I love, and he was talking about how he practices this and what he gets out of it, so I'll link that in the description if anyone's interested, but the basic idea is very simple. Really, you're just going to pick any pretty much like short musical phrase that's going to act as like a mantra for you, and you're just going to play it exactly the same as best as you can, non-stop for 20 minutes, alright? So when I do this on the guitar, I like to do a lot of, examples or mantras that would maybe be more in the lower register because of that range and feeling that resonance and vibration that might even be closer to my voice. I'll say more on that in a second, but I think what I did this morning was something like, and I would repeat it though. Right, non-stop, okay, as best as you can, and you really don't want to vary it, even though you might start hearing and tapping into some cool things, once you get into it. All right, and you know, it's not surprising to me, like a lot of these ideas that I come up with are almost very like pentatonic based, or may have a lot of like fourths and fifths in them. It's not surprising to me that they kind of remind me of this classic bass line. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what this is. Even that whole, later Coltrane, modal, even avant-garde phase, really just kind of going deep into one sound, of course, impressions, that whole era. I kind of relate that to this whole thing of just kind of, really staying in one zone and kind of exploring it. It's a little different from the repetition of a single phrase, but I think it's all interconnected, all right? But basically some sort of simple phrase. A few days ago, I actually used the bass line from the Phish song Sand, some of you may know, right? Just literally for 20 minutes non-stop, all right? And, there's obvious musical benefits to that I don't want to get into too much, but, like I said before, it can kind of unify the spirit, especially if you're singing along with it, the body because you're playing it, and the mind, almost in that it's calming the mind, and you're trying to like not focus on any other things, so you can really almost open up and listen to what's going on around. It's kind of hard to explain, all right? Now, even just as a general life thing, like I said, I think this gives you the benefits that you would get from regular transcendental meditation. And I've been into meditation in general for a while now, off and on with it for maybe around 10 years, but for a while it's mostly been like a more basic mindfulness kind of meditation, and only recently have I become more interested in what stuff like transcendental meditation might be able to do, or other stuff that I'll describe as well. To be transparent with you, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in transcendental meditation at all. So, admittedly, I think I'm talking from a place of ignorance because I don't really know if this is as good as the actual TM, which would really be like chanting a mantra. Some of you may be familiar with people like Herbie Hancock talking about chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo in his Buddhist practices, and I think I tried that like a while ago, but that's basically what this is. And I could see the possibility that actually chanting a mantra may actually be better because, you're literally feeling those vibrations within yourself. But that's why when I do this, even though I think it's more of a priority to actually play whatever the idea is, I oftentimes like to sing or hum and chant along with it, just the melody line, so that I'm kind of like connecting with it myself and engaging that spirit, like I said before. And also, just to add, even if you were only doing this the regular way and chanting a mantra, we could see the obvious musical quality in that already anyway. It's essentially the same thing. And even though it's like I said at the beginning, you don't really need to be a real musician to do this, but you may have access to a musical instrument and are at least able to play something simple at the very least. So by all means, still do this with an instrument if you like, because for me personally, it's definitely easier to do this with an instrument versus chanting. But if you don't, just know that you could chant and still get the most benefit out of it anyway. All right, but I don't really know. And that's the thing, like, TM is something that seems very simple, but if you kind of look into it, apparently, for people to really learn it, they have to like pay someone who's really experienced and they give them a mantra. But I don't really understand what more do they potentially have to, tell you about it other than experience or things to maybe be aware of when doing it. But that's why I don't really know. And I saw that video of Mike Gordon talking about it, but I tried to look up more information about doing this sort of transcendent practice by just playing a musical instrument, and surprisingly, I couldn't really come across much. I would think there would be more, so that's why I decided to talk about it here as well. I could already understand the benefits in transcendence a little bit because although I never really practiced it consistently before this point, I can find that in doing things such as like doing the dishes and how that kind of calms my mind. And I think that a lot of the benefits that you can get from all meditations overlap and can be kind of similar. But when it comes to the TM in particular, I think it could be one of the best things for really like elevating your state of mind and the way you feel in the moment, which can help you, engage in activities and living your life day to day. So I'm getting a little corny here, but that's the first thing that I like to do, all right? Now, the second thing may be even more obvious and simpler than that, all right? And I'm going to describe it in a stupid way intentionally, but really all it is taking a nap and listening to music while you're doing it, all right? Now, this to me is kind of related to what Andrew Huberman, I'm sure some of you are familiar with him, coined the term as NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. But even he says what that really is, in a more traditional way of labeling it would be yoga nidra, I believe. And when I looked into that, not to criticize it because I like it, but to me, it's essentially just taking a nap. And for someone like me with a very active mind, it could be just very good to do that in general. No matter what you're doing when you're taking a nap. Because when you go to sleep, it's almost like you're just, stopping what you're doing and you think you have to go to sleep. But by taking a nap, it's almost like you're telling yourself, I'm, intentionally trying to rest and take a break here and just, try to get into a state of calm. Now, the thing is, I really like Andrew Huberman, and if he ever sees this, I would really be interested in his thoughts on some of these things I'm going to say here right now. Because here's the thing. The only difference between, what he, I guess, would consider NSDR and what I'm doing here is, he might give you like a guided meditation or a thing to listen to while you're, relaxing and doing it, where I'm suggesting that instead of listening to that and whatever he may say to do, to really just listen to music and pick music that you like. I like to pick relaxing music, often jazz duo stuff. and treat it more like a mindfulness thing where I don't have to necessarily focus on my breath, but I want to notice my thoughts when they come up and just try to return to center and listen to the music and enjoy it. And for me, I think it's better than listening to a guided meditation. And here's my critique on any sort of guided meditation. It's not that I think it's necessarily bad, especially if you're listening to a particular one for the first time. Because if you're listening to something for the first time, then it makes more sense that your mind would be engaged with whatever you're listening to in the moment, and therefore it'll kind of bring you into a state of presence. But it could be a good guided meditation, and it's easy to make it a habit, so you might think, all right, like I'll listen to this every time I do this meditation. But if it's the same sort of script or whatever that you're listening to over and over again, I believe that the mind can kind of, after a while, tune out from that because it kind of already knows what to expect. And then I think it increases the probability of not even being able to center yourself in presence or calm down or whatnot because you already kind of know what's happening. You kind of know that you have to do that, but it's easy to start thinking about other stuff. See, the thing is, no matter what type of meditation you may be doing, it's usually going to involve consistent focusing on something, whether that's something passive, like your breath, and you're just becoming aware of it, or you're doing something more active, like playing a musical phrase or chanting or whatnot, right? So by consistently bringing your attention to whatever you're doing over and over, it's helping you come into a state of presence. So in a guided meditation, even though the guide itself may be telling you what to focus on, I think because that's what you're listening to, that is in essence what's bringing you to presence. So if you start to tune it out because you're already familiar with what it's going to say, then you're not necessarily making a firm, awareness in your head of like, what exactly am I trying to focus on consistently? Because you could focus on your breath, you could, focus on a lot of things, but without an intention of what to focus on, you can kind of fall out of it, I suppose. So for me, the main purposes of why I may be doing this is to, bring myself into a state of calm and to relax and maybe charge up a little bit in the middle of the day so that I can go forward later. But it's easier for me to just do that listening to music and kind of letting my whole mind like disassociate, and I can still do the relaxing kind of breath work. I know how to do it and become aware of that even still, but I think that this may be better for that purpose than potentially just listening to someone talking, especially if you're listening to that same script over and over again, as you do it more and more. All right, so I'm rambling there, but that's how I feel about that. But again, this is another good thing for a musician or anyone just to help you calm down in the middle of the day. And I know this is rocket science. I'm basically telling you to take a nap here and tell yourself to, or force yourself to do nothing in the moment, right? But maybe this is something that someone needs to hear, right? That's why I'm making this video. So I guess I'll just leave that there for today. That's really all I wanted to talk about. I'm sure there's some points that I may be leaving out with this, but hopefully you were able to get something out of this, alright? So if anyone has any questions or anything they want to say, just put it in the comments. I'm here to help. And in the next episode,
hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey,
I'm gonna probably go back to talking about some things relating to the main topic, like I said, and really trying to wind that down so we could do some new stuff soon. But I guess we'll just see how it all turns out. Alright, so anyway, that's it. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a like and consider becoming a subscriber, as well as a contributor to Patreon, where you'll get all the PDFs on this channel for only $5 a month. I know there's nothing having to do with that today, but it's a really good deal, alright? So if you think anyone else would enjoy this content as well, please share it with them, and I will see you guys in episode 92.
Swinging and playing the blues. That's what we about.
I'm trying to help you.